This is one of the oldest schools in the areas of special needs. It was started in 1969 by parents who had children with a disability called cerebral palsy, especially spasticity was the very disability of their children. Today we have around 100, almost 200 children aged from 6 to 18 years of age, and our major departments are formal education, rehabilitation, which includes physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and other medical areas, and vocational training. It's a boarding school, so children stay at school when it's term time. The question that comes in many times by most people is that today the way to go is integration. Why don't these children go and be with other children in the mainstream schools? But as you may realize, the school environment in most of the schools in Uganda are, first of all, disability friendly by numbers. If you have children with special learning needs and you have a class of 80 pupils with one teacher, there is no way they can be helped with their learning challenges. But as you will go on, you will realize that the interventions needed by the kind of children we look after are such that cannot exist in the ordinary schools. For example, if we talk about rehabilitation, which is part and parcel of any child with cerebral palsy, matter of fact, it is one of the major interventions that is needed for them to be able to normally learn. So you will find that you have to continue having exercises that stimulate their different faculties, like when you come to TAC Park, which is supposed to help in many areas. When you go to hydrotherapy, you find that children who are spastic have very stiff muscles, and they can best be exercised under a media of water, because underwater you relax. So underwater they relax and then their muscles are able to be exercised. If they are not, they get contractures and eventually they'll have secondary disabilities, which actually makes it harder and harder for them to be able to address their learning challenges. So rehabilitation, occupational therapy has to be part and parcel of learning of a child with cerebral palsy, which you cannot have in the ordinary school. And physiotherapy is part and parcel for children who have muscles that if they are not to have secondary complications. You will realize that there are other challenges like speech, like motor, and all those things that need very, very close and one-to-one approach and specialized training. So in a nutshell, you need to have these children in a special learning environment. And then probably later, when they have developed quite a number of self-help skills and are able to deal with quite a number of their challenges, then they can go in the mainstream, which happens many times because we don't have schools on the second level, which are specially for the children with learning challenges in our area. When we come to areas like vocational training, our belief is that a person with disability cannot be separated from skill training. Well, later on, everybody else. Today in the job market, if children ordinarily are equipped with skills, we will do away with much of the challenge of unemployment. But people with disability, there's even more challenge. If somebody walked in your office and they come in a wheelchair, and probably they're asking for a job, immediately your mind goes to the limitations that this person may not be able to perform, probably because of accessibility, probably because of A, B, C, D, and so on and so forth. So we always believe that always equip them with skills so that at the end of the day, if they're able to employ themselves, then it's less frustrating. And the stigma that goes along with that is also very well reduced. You find that we have to expose these children to a life as much normal as possible. For example, today the way to go is IT. In a small way, we have introduced computer training. Much as they are young, but at least they get exposed and they develop the interest, and later on they're able to use it. In fact, you will find that especially wheelchair restricted people and very severe people, they'll be able to perform very well if they are working on a desk, you know. So anything and employment that goes around IT and things that they don't need to have to go out and move, they sit in one place and perform, those are areas that would be very good for them to take on. So our stage is what you call the foundational stage for any child, you know. And therefore it's so important that they get the right foundation in everything that is going to build on their education and finally whatever career or their lives. On the other hand, we also believe that people are talented in so many different ways. So you need to have a wide scope of areas of interest introduced to them so that as they pick their talent, as we work around it, I believe it is, and we believe it is the duty of the teachers and the parents to find the areas that the children are talented in, or the areas that they can do very well in, and we build on that. In this school, we look at ability, not disability. Unfortunately, when most people look at people with handicap, they immediately spell out the disability. But we stress the ability because you have to look where the ability is and build on the ability. However, there are a lot of interventions that are needed, as you will see, so that this child is in the long run able to realize the best of who they are. We will always come back and go back to society and everybody else, because as you will realize, we always say these are high maintenance cost children. For example, recently we have one of our students who has to go for the World Chess Championship for people with disability, which is the first time somebody is going from Uganda, but he has to go with a teacher and he has to go with a helper. Now, which means we had to fundraise for all the three. Essentially, in an ordinary setting, you just get a ticket for this little one and they have to go. So here you have to pay 3 times as much for one child to go and participate where they have to participate. What am I saying? It's an expensive venture, but it is our responsibility, on the other hand, to do what it takes for each one of these young people to eventually be independent and useful citizens like you and me. So this is why I come to the corporates and everybody out there, and we are saying, why don't we join hands? Presently, the thing we are fundraising for is specifically the staff housing. What happens, those are areas that many people don't want to spend on. Most people, they want to directly support the child, which is very good and is a basic cause. But if you don't have motivated people working with this child, it's most unlikely that you will get the product that you'd love to. So while our school has, I think, the best environment, you will realize that all our children are happy. It is literally a happy environment. The most sad thing on the school campus is the staff houses. I don't even want you to see them. But the reality is the staff housing is a miserable area where some people have been and they've seen the good work and they feel like, no, we need to do something about this, you know. And so we're coming out to say, please come support so that we can together make the best for our children. You will realize that the kind of staff we work with is not just the ordinary people. It's a multidisciplinary approach. You have the physiotherapists, you have the occupational therapists, you have the doctors, you have the speech therapists, you have the teachers, You know, and all these are well qualified people. You will not have them on the ordinary level. So it is important that if we're going to have good therapists working with our children to turn out the best of each child, then we are going to have good working terms.